I worked for the U.S. Forest Service for 14 years. Not search and rescue. Not law enforcement. I was a resource management specialist in District 7, Pacific Northwest region, stationed at an administrative compound about 40 minutes outside Eugene. My job was primarily clerical. Trail assessments. Timber reports. Watershed evaluations. I coordinated field data from seasonal crews into quarterly summaries that went up the chain to the regional forester's office. I'm telling you this because people hear forest ranger and picture someone alone in a tower or hiking ridgelines at dawn. That wasn't me. I drove a desk. I compiled spreadsheets. Most days I didn't even see the forest except through the window of my office in Building C, a single-story cinder block structure with carpet tiles from 1994 and a heating system that clicked every 11 minutes like a metronome. The reports I need to tell you about weren't mine. They came through my office because everything came through my office. I was the bottleneck. The sorting mechanism. Seasonal field crews would file daily observation logs, trail conditions, wildlife sightings, erosion markers, anything unusual, and I would categorize them, flag anything that needed follow-up, and archive the rest. In June of 2019, my supervisor, Dara Elmore, called me into her office at the end of a Thursday. This was unusual. Dara communicated almost exclusively through email, even when we were 15 feet apart. She had a mug of tea that had gone cold. I remember that because she was holding it with both hands like she needed something to grip. She told me that starting Monday, any field report coded with a red margin tag would bypass my normal processing. I wasn't to read them. I wasn't to log them into the digital system. I was to place them in a specific interoffice envelope. She handed me a box of them, plain brown, unmarked, and leave them in her outgoing tray before the end of each business day. I asked what the red margin tag indicated. She said it was a legacy coding system being phased out. Administrative cleanup. Nothing to worry about. I didn't worry about it. Not then. The first red-tagged report arrived Tuesday. It was handwritten, which was already strange. Most field crews use standardized digital forms transmitted through tablets. Handwritten reports were technically acceptable but rare. This one was on a lined yellow legal pad page, folded into thirds. The red margin was a single vertical line drawn in what looked like crayon down the left edge of the paper. I didn't read it. I put it in the brown envelope. I left it in Dara's tray. 3 more came that week. By mid-July, I was processing between 4 and 9 per week. All handwritten. All on different paper, legal pad, printer paper, once what appeared to be the back of a topographic map section. All with that same red crayon line. I want to be honest with you. I read one. Early August. It was the shortest one I'd received. Maybe 40 words. Written in blocky print that pressed hard enough to tear the paper in 2 places. It said, Trail 9 closure still active. Counted again this morning. 3rd day. The number is still wrong. There are 11 markers between posts 9.2 and 9.4. There should be 8. The 3 extra ones are not ours. They look like ours. Same material. Same paint. They were not there in spring survey. That was it. I put it in the envelope. I didn't think about it for 2 weeks. Trail markers get vandalized sometimes. People steal them, move them, add homemade ones as jokes. It didn't seem like something that required a classified processing pipeline. If you're listening to this late at night, if stories like this are what keep you company in the dark hours, you might consider subscribing to this channel. I don't tell this to many people. Most of the people I used to work with won't discuss it at all. In late August, two things happened in the same week. First, I received a red-tagged report that was 11 pages long. Front and back. Dense, cramped handwriting. I saw the length when I picked it up and something in me, I don't know. Curiosity. Irritation at the secrecy. I turned to a random page in the middle and read a single paragraph before I made myself stop. The paragraph described a grove of Douglas fir approximately 200 meters off-trail in Sector 14. The author, a seasonal named Whitfield, I recognized his crew ID number in the header, described the trees as wrong in count. He'd GPS marked 7 trees in this grove during the May assessment. He was now looking at 9 trees in the same GPS coordinates with the same diameter measurements and the same bark scarring. 2 additional trees that had not existed 4 months ago and could not have grown in that time. Full height. Full diameter. Identical to the others. He described checking and rechecking his instruments. He described touching the bark of the new trees. He described them as real. Solid. Producing the right sound when knocked. But he wrote, and I remember the exact phrasing because I can still see his handwriting, they shouldn't count. I don't know how else to say it. They register on every instrument I have but they don't count. I put it in the envelope. Second, that same Friday, I stayed 40 minutes late finishing a watershed summary. The building was empty. Dara's office door was open. Her outgoing tray was gone, replaced by a paper shredder I'd never seen before. Industrial. The kind with a bin underneath. The bin was full. I don't know why I looked. I could see fragments. Yellow legal pad. The red crayon line, cut into ribbons. She wasn't archiving them. She was destroying them. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Then I went home. Over Labor Day weekend, I drove to a hardware store in Springfield and bought a small portable scanner. The kind that fits in a desk drawer. Starting that Tuesday, I scanned every red-tagged report before putting it in the envelope. I need you to understand my reasoning. I wasn't playing detective. I wasn't trying to expose a conspiracy. I was a federal employee watching my supervisor destroy field reports instead of archiving them, and I wanted a record in case this ever became a legal issue. Whistleblower protection requires evidence. That's what I told myself. September through November, I scanned 43 reports. I read them all. Here is what they described, collectively, across 7 different field crew members working in 5 different sectors of our district. Things in the forest that matched the forest but didn't belong to it. Not just trail markers. Not just trees. The reports documented additional boulders in mapped stream beds. Extra fence posts along boundary lines. A footbridge with 9 planks that had been built with 7. A fire ring at a backcountry camp with 12 stones when every previous survey documented 10. A section of trail with 4 switchbacks where there had always been 3, and the 4th switch was physically present, walked upon, real, but absent from every map, every aerial photo, every prior GPS track. Whitfield's reports were the most detailed. He'd been assigned to Sector 14 for 3 consecutive seasons. He knew it intimately. By October, his reports had shifted in tone. Less clinical. More insistent. He kept returning to the same word, count. The count is wrong. Something is adding to the count. I counted the posts between mile 3 and mile 4 this morning. 19. There should be 16. I painted each one in May. 16 marks. Now there are 19 posts and 16 paint marks. The 3 without paint are in the middle, not at the end. October 14th, Whitfield filed his longest report. 17 pages. I scanned all of it. The central observation was this: he had begun photographing the things that didn't count. Every day, same locations, same angles. He'd print the photos at the district office and compare them. The extra objects appeared in his photographs. But when he compared Tuesday's photo to Wednesday's photo of the same location, the extras were never in the same position. Not that they'd moved, exactly. They were just differently integrated. Tuesday's photo showed an extra boulder on the right side of the stream. Wednesday's photo showed the same number of extra boulders, but the one on the right was now between two originals, indistinguishable from them in wear and moss coverage. As if the stream had always had that many stones. The additions weren't appearing. They were settling in. 11:47 a.m. October 14th. A Monday. That's the timestamp on the paragraph I keep coming back to. Whitfield wrote, I put flagging tape on the 3 new posts. Orange. Came back after lunch. 4 posts now have orange tape. I only flagged 3. I watched my hands do it. 3 posts. 3 pieces of tape. There are 4. He didn't flag a 4th post. Something else did. Or the count of what he did changed after he did it. I need to explain what made this different from vandalism or pranks or any rational explanation. It wasn't the addition of foreign objects to the forest. It was the arithmetic. Every crew member who submitted red-tagged reports described the same disorientation. The forest wasn't gaining new things. It was gaining more of its own things. The same material. The same age. The same wear. Integrated so perfectly that only someone who had counted before could perceive the discrepancy. And even then, even with GPS and photographs and flagging tape, the evidence of wrongness degraded over time. By Whitfield's account, extras he documented in June were, by October, indistinguishable from the originals in every measurable dimension. The only evidence they hadn't always been there was his own count from months ago. The forest wasn't being haunted. It was being, I don't know the right word, supplemented. In November, I tried to talk to Whitfield directly. He was a seasonal, his contract ran April through October. I found his phone number in the personnel directory. Disconnected. I found his permanent address in Corvallis. I drove there on a Saturday. The house was real. A small craftsman bungalow on a street of similar houses. A woman answered the door. She said Whitfield had moved out in September. Left no forwarding address. She was his landlord. She said he'd seemed fine, paid through October, and left early without explanation. She mentioned, almost as an aside, that he'd left a lot of things behind. Clothes. Books. She said, too many, really. More than I remembered him moving in with. I had to make 3 trips to Goodwill. I sat in my car for a long time after that. December was quiet. No red-tagged reports came in, field crews were off for winter. I kept working. Normal duties. Watershed summaries. Timber assessments. I started noticing things about my own work that made my throat tight. The district map on my office wall. Standard USGS quad, annotated with our management boundaries. I'd looked at it every day for over a decade. In December, I started counting the tributaries on Willow Creek. I counted 14. I had no reason to think that was wrong. I'd never counted them before. But something about the number felt too high. Too many lines feeding into the main channel. I requested the previous year's watershed assessment from archives. The one I'd written myself. I documented 12 tributaries on Willow Creek. I remembered writing 12. My handwriting. My data. The map showed 14. I pulled up satellite imagery. 14 tributaries. Clear as anything. I zoomed to maximum resolution. All 14 showed riparian vegetation consistent with decades of water flow. None of them looked new. But I'd written 12. 11 months ago. From the same map. I told myself I'd miscounted. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that tributaries on a map are a matter of scale and interpretation and that I'd simply been less precise the previous year. I told myself a lot of things. January. I went to Dara. I didn't mention the scans. I didn't mention Whitfield. I asked, casually, in the break room, pouring coffee, whether she'd heard anything about trail marker discrepancies in the field reports last season. She looked at me for 3 seconds without blinking. Then she said, "Those reports were retired for a reason, Marcus. The coding system was flawed. It generated false entries. That's why we stopped using it." I said, "False entries in the reports? Or false entries in the forest?" She put her mug down and walked back to her office. That afternoon, an email arrived from Regional. Subject line, Annual Records Compliance Audit. The body informed me that all physical field reports from the previous fiscal year were to be collected and transferred to Regional for archival review. A courier would arrive Friday. Every report I'd processed that year was boxed and gone by end of business Friday. The filing cabinet that had held the overflow was empty. Dara's shredder was gone too. The only thing that remained was my drawer full of scans on a thumb drive I hadn't told anyone about. February. I did something I'm not proud of. I drove out to Sector 14. Trail 9. Off-season, technically closed, but I had a master key to every gate in the district. I told myself I was doing a pre-season assessment. I parked at the trailhead at 7:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. Overcast. About 40 degrees. Quiet in the way only a winter forest is quiet, not silent, but depopulated. No birdsong. No hikers. Just the sound of water moving somewhere downhill and the occasional crack of a branch under its own weight. I walked to the section Whitfield had documented most extensively. Posts 9.2 to 9.4. About a mile and a half from the trailhead. I had his reports on my phone. He documented 11 markers where there should be 8. I counted. 13. Same material as the originals. Same carcinite posts with the same agency decals, same route number, same UV fading consistent with years of sun exposure. 13 posts in a stretch of trail that, according to every institutional record, contained 8. I touched them. Solid. Cold. Real. I stood there for a while. I want to describe what I felt, but it wasn't fear. Not exactly. It was more like the feeling you get when you realize you've been mispronouncing a word your entire life and everyone has heard you do it and no one has said anything. A kind of retroactive wrongness. The sense that something has been true for longer than you've been aware of it. I took photographs. 13 posts. Clear as day. I walked back to my truck. I drove to the office. I uploaded the photos to my computer. 13 posts in the photos. I went home that night and looked at them again. 14 posts. Same photos. I hadn't taken new ones. I hadn't altered anything. The same files, same timestamps, same metadata. 14 posts now. I counted them on my screen 4 times. 14. I opened the raw files on a different device. 14. I looked at the thumbnails on my camera's SD card. 14. I had counted 13 in the field. I was certain. I'd used my finger, pointing at each one, moving left to right. 13. I'd even thought, 2 more than Whitfield's last count. But the photographic evidence showed 14. This is the part where I need you to understand what kind of fear this is. It's not the fear of something in the dark. It's not the fear of being watched or followed. It's the fear that quantity itself is unreliable. That the world contains more of itself than it did a moment ago, and adjusts all evidence to accommodate the addition, and the only thing that can't be adjusted is the memory of someone who happened to be counting. And memory is the weakest evidence there is. March. I was putting together the pre-season briefing packet for incoming seasonal crews. Standard onboarding materials. Maps, protocols, emergency contacts, radio frequencies. I'd assembled this packet every year for a decade. The emergency contact list had 11 names on it. I remembered 10. I checked last year's packet in my sent email. 10 names. But when I opened the attached PDF, it showed 11. The 11th name, a district botanist I vaguely recognized, was integrated into the alphabetical list as if she'd always been there. Her extension number fit the sequential pattern. Her office was listed as Building A, Room 7. Building A had 6 rooms. I walked over during lunch. Building A. I counted the doors in the hallway. 7. Room 7 was at the end. The door was closed. A nameplate read, Dr. Carol Vasquez, District Botanist. The nameplate was brass, oxidized at the edges, clearly years old. I'd walked this hallway hundreds of times. I stood in front of the door for maybe 30 seconds. Then I knocked. No answer. I tried the handle. Locked. I looked through the small window. Inside, a desk, a filing cabinet, a computer monitor displaying a screensaver, a mug with pens, a jacket draped over a chair. Everything about it said, someone works here. Someone has worked here for a long time. I asked 3 colleagues that afternoon if they knew Carol Vasquez. 2 said yes, the district botanist, she's been here for years, keeps to herself. 1 said, who? That one, Kevin, a wildlife tech, looked confused. There's no botanist position in this district, he said. Never has been since I started. Kevin started in 2012. Same year as me. I checked the personnel database. Carol Vasquez. Hired 2008. 11 years of service. Performance reviews. Training certificates. A photo ID with a face I had never seen. I checked again the next day. Still there. I checked the week after. Still there. But now Kevin remembered her too. Carol. Yeah, the botanist. She's in Building A. Why? He said it like he'd always known. Like my question was strange. I stopped asking people about Carol Vasquez. April. The seasonal crews came back. New faces, some returning. I processed their onboarding paperwork. I noticed, without wanting to notice, that the crew rosters were larger than I expected. Not dramatically. 1 or 2 additional names per crew that I couldn't match to interview records or hiring memos. But they had complete personnel files. Background checks. Certifications. They showed up for orientation like everyone else. I stopped counting the crew members. I want to be clear about this, I stopped. Deliberately. Because I understood, without anyone telling me, without any explicit threat, that counting was the only thing that made the wrongness visible. Everyone who didn't count saw a normal forest. A normal office. A normal world. The additions settled. They became real. They achieved a kind of retroactive permanence that was indistinguishable from always having been. Whitfield counted. And Whitfield was gone. The landlord said he left behind too many things. More than he'd moved in with. I think about that sentence at least once a day. May. I went back to Sector 14. I don't entirely know why. Maybe to test whether I could walk through it without counting. Maybe to prove to myself that the forest was just a forest if you let it be one. It was a warm morning. Clear sky. Trail in good condition. I walked past the post section without counting. I kept my eyes on the canopy. I listened to the creek. I breathed. It was fine. It was a normal forest. I walked for about 3 miles, to the footbridge over Alder Creek. I'd crossed it dozens of times. I crossed it again that day without looking down, without counting planks, without checking anything against anything. On the other side, I stopped to drink water. I looked back at the bridge. A woman was standing in the middle of it. She was wearing a Forest Service uniform. Correct insignia. Correct boots. She was maybe mid-40s, with dark hair pulled back. She had a clipboard. She looked up at me and nodded, the kind of nod you give a colleague on a trail. Professional. Familiar. I nodded back. She walked across the bridge toward the trailhead and disappeared around the bend. I had never seen her before. But I didn't count her. I let her be there. June 4, 2020. My last day in the office. I didn't quit dramatically. I didn't file a report. I submitted my 2 weeks' notice citing personal reasons, worked out my final shifts, and shook hands with colleagues on my way out. Dara thanked me for my service. She looked relieved. On my final afternoon, while clearing my desk, I opened the bottom drawer to retrieve the thumb drive with my scans. It was there. I plugged it in. The folder that had contained 43 scanned reports now contained 47. I had scanned 43. I remembered each one. I had a handwritten log of dates and page counts in my notebook. I opened the 4 additional files. They were field reports. Red margin tag visible in the scan. Handwritten. They described observations in Sector 14 from dates in March and April, dates when the seasonal crews hadn't yet returned. Dates when no one should have been filing field reports. The handwriting was mine. My hand. My blocky print. My habit of crossing sevens. My crew ID number in the header. I don't remember writing them. I don't remember being in the field on those dates. I checked my own calendar. I'd been in the office. Normal days. Meetings. Emails time-stamped throughout. The reports described countable additions to Sector 14. They were clinical. Precise. They documented 17 new boulders in Alder Creek, 4 additional switchbacks on Trail 12, and, on the final page of the final report, an additional structure at the trailhead parking area. A vehicle. My vehicle. The report described my truck in the same language every other report used, same make, same model, same wear pattern, same license plate. Present at the trailhead. Integrated. But additional. The report's conclusion, in my handwriting, was a single line. Second vehicle confirmed. Owner does not appear aware of duplicate. I took the thumb drive. I drove home. I have never been back to that office. I have never returned to Sector 14. I moved to Portland. I work in private sector data management now. I count nothing. I inventory nothing. When I notice that a shelf has more books than I remember, or a street has more parked cars than seems right, or a building has more windows than I think it should, I look away. I look away every time. Because here's what I understand now. What Dara understood. What the burned reports were protecting. The additions are not hostile. They are not predatory. They don't take anything away. They only add. More trees. More stones. More trail markers. More rooms. More people. More of everything, in perfect imitation of what already exists, settling into the world so completely that only someone who counted before can detect the difference. And the mechanism by which they settle, the thing that allows them to become retroactively real, is the cessation of attention. They become permanent when you stop looking. They become true when no one is keeping count. The reports were burned because documenting the additions is the only thing that keeps them visible as additions. A burned report is a counted thing becoming uncounted. It's permission for the new to finish becoming real. Dara wasn't destroying evidence. She was letting them in. I keep the thumb drive in a locked box. 47 files I don't open. I don't look at the 4 I didn't write. I don't verify whether the number has changed. I don't count the files. I don't count anything. But last week, and this is why I'm telling you this now, I was organizing my apartment closet and found a jacket I don't recognize. Forest Service green. The right size. My name on the breast pocket, embroidered, the thread faded as if from years of wash and wear. I own one Forest Service jacket. I took it with me when I left. It's in the same closet. There are 2 now. I haven't counted anything else in my apartment. I won't. I understand the shape of this now. The additions don't come from somewhere. They don't enter. They don't arrive. The world simply has more of itself than it did, and the more has always been there, and it has always been there, and the only thing that was ever wrong was someone counting. So I've stopped. But I need you to understand the cost of stopping. It means I can't verify anything. I can't confirm that the apartment I walk into each night has the same number of rooms it had when I signed the lease. I can't confirm that the face in my bathroom mirror is singular. I can't confirm that when I fall asleep alone, I wake up the same way. I can't count. Because if I count, I'll see what's been added. And if I see it, it won't be able to finish settling. And if it can't finish settling, if I keep it visible, keep it documented, keep it in the count, I don't know what it does then. Whitfield counted. Whitfield kept counting. Whitfield's landlord donated more belongings than he'd arrived with to Goodwill and never saw him again. I think he became something that counted. I think the act of insisting on the correct number, of refusing to let the addition settle, turned him into the discrepancy he was measuring. One more Whitfield than there should have been. Indistinguishable from the original. Wearing the same clothes. Having the same things. But additional. And when there were two, neither one knew which was the count and which was the surplus. So I don't count. I go to work. I come home. I watch television. I sleep. If there are more hours in my day than there should be, I don't track them. If there are more steps between my door and my car than there were yesterday, I don't notice. If the woman at the coffee shop says, "See you tomorrow," and I don't remember being there today, I smile and say, "You too." I live in the world that results from not counting. It's fine. It's a normal life. There's just more of it than I remember starting with. That was what I told myself for almost 2 years. That the strategy was working. That not counting was a form of survival. That I could live inside the surplus without being consumed by it, the same way everyone else seemed to, oblivious, comfortable, never once questioning whether the world had the right number of things in it. And then, in March of 2022, the strategy failed. Not because I started counting again. I want to be very clear about that. I didn't break my own rule. What happened is that someone else started counting for me. Her name was Erin Mallory. She worked 2 cubicles down from me at the data management firm. We'd been friendly for 8 months, lunch occasionally, the kind of light workplace rapport where you know someone's coffee order and their dog's name but nothing deeper. She was organized. Meticulous. The kind of person who noticed when a spreadsheet had 1 extra row. On a Tuesday in March, she stopped me in the hallway and said, "Marcus, do you remember when they added the 3rd bathroom on this floor?" I said I didn't. She said, "That's what's strange." Neither do I. But there it is. She pointed down the hallway. 3 doors where the restrooms were. Men's. Women's. And a 3rd, unmarked, at the end. Same door. Same handle. Same brushed steel plate where a sign should be. I said, "It's probably a utility closet." She said, "I tried it yesterday. It's a bathroom. Full size. Same layout as the other 2. But I've been on this floor for 3 years and I can't remember it being built." I said, "Renovations happen on weekends sometimes." She accepted that. She went back to her desk. I did not go look at the 3rd bathroom. I did not count the doors in the hallway. I walked past it every day for a week without turning my head. On Friday, Erin was at my cubicle again. She had a building floor plan pulled up on her phone, the one posted in the elevator for fire evacuation purposes. She showed me the image. 2 bathrooms, she said. See. The floor plan shows 2. But there are 3. Floor plans don't always get updated, I said. I called facilities management, she said. They said this floor has 2 bathrooms. They said there's no 3rd bathroom. But Marcus, I used it yesterday. I washed my hands in it. The soap dispenser was full. I looked at her face. She was confused. Not frightened. Just that tilt of the head that says, this doesn't match, and I'm the kind of person who needs things to match. I said, maybe just drop it. She laughed. Drop it. It's a bathroom. I'm not chasing ghosts. I just think it's weird that nobody remembers it being put in. I should have said more. I should have said something that would have made her stop. But what could I have told her? Don't count the bathrooms. Don't verify reality against official records. She would have thought I was insane. So I said nothing. Over the following 2 weeks, Erin sent me 4 emails. Each one documented a minor discrepancy she'd noticed in the office. An extra fire extinguisher in the stairwell that wasn't on the inspection log. A 4th emergency exit sign on a floor that the building code only required 3-4. A name on the company directory, Paul Ostrander, IT support, that nobody in our department recognized but whose employee profile showed 6 years of tenure. Her emails were light. Amused. She treated it like a puzzle. Am I losing my mind, she wrote in one, or did this building get bigger? April 9, 2022. A Wednesday. I was at my desk at 8:40 a.m. Erin's cubicle was empty. Not unusual, she sometimes started late on Wednesdays for a standing medical appointment. By 10 o'clock, she still wasn't in. By noon, I asked our team lead if Erin was out sick. He looked at me blankly. Erin, he said. Erin Mallory. She sits right there. I pointed at her cubicle. He looked at it. Empty desk. No personal items. No monitor. Just a bare surface and an empty chair. That cubicle's been empty since Dave transferred out in January, he said. We haven't filled it. I went to HR that afternoon. I asked about Erin Mallory. They searched the system. No record. No employee by that name. No hiring paperwork. No badge access logs. I went back to my desk and searched my email for her messages. The 4 emails she'd sent me were gone. Not deleted, gone. Not in trash, not in archive, not in any folder. My sent replies to her were also absent. I checked my phone. Her contact wasn't there. I checked my text history. Nothing. Erin Mallory didn't exist in any system I could access. But I remembered her. I remembered her coffee order, oat milk latte, no sugar. Her dog's name, Biscuit. The way she said Marcus with a slight rise at the end like every statement was half a question. And I remembered what she'd been doing in her final weeks. Counting. Documenting. Comparing reality against records and finding the surplus. Same thing Whitfield did. I left work early that day. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes with the engine off, breathing, trying to think clearly. Here is what I understood. Erin hadn't disappeared. That's not the right word. Disappearing implies subtraction. Something taken away. What happened to Erin was addition. She'd been added to the count of things that aren't there. Made into a surplus that the world wouldn't verify. She existed, I could remember her, I could see her empty cubicle, but she didn't count. The records didn't include her. The people around me had already stopped remembering. She'd been made into the exact thing she'd been documenting, present but unregistered. Or, and this is the thought that kept me awake for the next 6 nights, she'd always been the addition. From the beginning. A person extra. Someone who shouldn't have counted, who'd been settling in, becoming real, until she made the mistake of turning the counting mechanism on herself and the world she inhabited. And once she started looking at what didn't belong, she made herself visible as something that didn't belong. The additions can only settle when no one is measuring. Aaron started measuring. So Aaron became unmeasurable. I don't know which explanation is true. I don't know if there's a difference. April through June. I maintained my discipline. I did not count. I did not verify. I let the world be whatever size it was, and I moved through it without checking. But the apartment bothered me. Not because anything was wrong with it. Because it was comfortable. Because it felt like home. Because I had lived there for 2 years and developed the routines and spatial memory of someone who belongs in a place, and I could no longer trust that sense of belonging was evidence of anything. I started leaving small markers for myself. Not counting. Just orientation points. I put a single strip of blue painter's tape on the inside of my front door. 1 strip. I didn't count the doors or windows or rooms. I just marked one thing. 1 anchor. Something I could verify without measuring the whole. Every morning when I left for work, I looked at the tape. Blue strip. Still there. 1. For 3 months, this was fine. July 19th. I came home from work at 5:45 p.m. I opened my front door. I looked at the tape. 1 blue strip. Good. I made dinner. I watched television. At 11 p.m., I got up to lock the front door before bed. 2 blue strips. Same tape. Same blue. Same position, both at eye level, 6 inches from the door frame. 1 on the left side. 1 on the right. I had placed 1 strip. On the left side. I remembered doing it. I remembered choosing the left side because I'm left-handed and it would be in my natural sight line. The right side strip looked identical. Same tape. Same length, about 4 inches. Same slight curl at the bottom edge where the adhesive didn't fully grip the paint. I peeled off the right side strip. I threw it away. I went to bed. The next morning, 1 strip. Left side. Normal. That evening, 2 strips. I stood in front of my door for a long time. I could feel the boundary of my discipline straining. The urge to check other things, the windows, the closet, the bathroom, was physical. A pressure behind my eyes. The desire to inventory. I peeled off the right strip again. I went to bed. The next morning, I removed the left strip too. Both of them. No tape. No markers. No anchors. Nothing to count. Nothing to add to. I was clean for another month. August. A heat wave in Portland. My apartment didn't have central air, just a window unit in the bedroom. I spent most of my evenings in that one room, door closed, fan running. The rest of the apartment stayed warm and unused during the hottest hours. On a Saturday afternoon, I left the bedroom to get water from the kitchen. The hallway between my bedroom and the kitchen is short, maybe 12 feet. 2 doors on the left, bathroom, coat closet. Open archway at the end into the kitchen. I walked the hallway. It took slightly longer than it should have. Not dramatically. Not measurably. Just the vague sense that my feet covered more distance than 12 feet of hallway should require. 13 steps instead of 11. Maybe 14. I did not count. I caught myself in the act of registering the number and I stopped. I stopped and I stood in the kitchen and I drank my water and I did not turn around and walk back while counting. I went back to my bedroom. Fine. Normal. But the hallway took 14 steps. August 30th. I couldn't sleep. 2 a.m. I was lying in bed listening to the window unit cycling and thinking about Erin Mallory. About whether she was somewhere inside the surplus, conscious, remembering me the way I remembered her. About whether being uncounted was a form of death or just a different kind of presence. About whether she'd always been extra and I'd simply been the last one to stop verifying her. I got up to use the bathroom. I opened my bedroom door. The hallway was dark. Normal. But there were 3 doors on the left now. Bathroom. Coat closet. And a third door, between them, that I had not seen before and could not identify. I stood there. The hallway light switch was at the far end, by the kitchen archway. I was in the dark. The only light was the blue glow of my alarm clock behind me. It illuminated maybe 2 feet into the hallway. Enough to see the 3 door frames. Enough to see the handles. All the same brushed nickel. All the same height. I didn't open the 3rd door. I didn't even walk past it. I went back to my bedroom. I closed my door. I used the small wastebasket in the corner instead of walking to the bathroom. In the morning, there were 2 doors in the hallway. Bathroom. Coat closet. Normal. I told myself, it settled. While I wasn't looking, the addition became real or it became nothing, and either way it was no longer visible because I didn't verify it, didn't count it, didn't check. I told myself that was fine. September. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked. Not because I was afraid of what was in the hallway. Because I was afraid I'd walk into it in my sleep and count without knowing. That I'd become Whitfield, documenting in my unconscious hours, unable to stop the part of me that measures. I bought a simple deadbolt at the hardware store and installed it myself. Nothing fancy. Just something I'd have to be awake to turn. For 3 weeks, this worked. I slept. I woke up in my bedroom. The deadbolt was engaged every morning. I felt something close to safe. October 3rd. A Monday. I woke at 6:15 a.m. The deadbolt was engaged. My bedroom was normal. My alarm clock showed the right time. Everything correct. I unlocked the door. Opened it. Hallway, 2 doors. Bathroom, coat closet. Normal. I went to work. At 2 p.m., I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Portland area code. The message said, "Hey, it's Erin. I found your number in my phone. Strange question, do you work at Cascade Data Solutions? I have a memory of working there but I can't find any record and nobody there remembers me. I'm not crazy, I just want to know if I'm right that I used to work there." I stared at my phone for a long time. I typed back, "Yes. You worked here. I remember you." 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Her reply, "Thank God. Can we meet? I need to talk to someone who remembers." We met at a coffee shop on Hawthorne that evening. She was there when I arrived. Same face. Same posture. She looked tired. Thinner than I remembered. She ordered a black coffee, not her usual oat milk latte. She told me she'd woken up in an apartment she didn't recognize 3 months ago. All her things were there, her furniture, her clothes, biscuit. But the apartment was wrong. Different neighborhood. Different layout. She'd checked her lease and it showed her signature, a move-in date from 2020. 2 years of living there, documented. But she remembered the other apartment. The one before. "I remember working with you," she said. "I remember the emails I sent you about the bathroom. The extra exit signs. Paul Ostrander." She paused. "Do you know what happened to me?" I told her. Some of it. Not everything. Enough for her to understand the shape. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for maybe a full minute. Then she said, "So I was the surplus." "I don't know," I said. "Maybe. Or maybe you got turned into it. I don't know if there's a difference." "There is one difference," she said. "I'm still here. I'm conscious. I have a life. I have a job, different job, a bookstore on Division. I have a lease and a bank account and a dog. Everything is real and documented and verified by other people. I just don't match where I was before." "Are you counting things?" I asked. She looked at me. "No." I stopped. "That's what did it, right? The counting." "I think so." So I stopped. And whatever put me here, it let me settle. I'm settled now. I'm real. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that Aaron had made it through, had been displaced but not destroyed. That the surplus could be a place you lived and not a place that ate you. But I was looking at her coffee. Black. Not oat milk. And her hands, the nails were shorter than I remembered. And she said, Cascade Data Solutions, in her text, which is the company's full legal name, but everyone who works there just calls it Cascade or CDS. Small things. The kind of things you'd get slightly wrong if you were almost someone but not quite. The kind of things a perfect edition might not replicate exactly. I didn't say any of this. We talked for another hour. She gave me her new phone number. She said we should stay in touch. She said it was a relief to know someone else remembered. I walked home. I didn't call her again. I deleted the number. I don't know if that was Aaron. The real Aaron. The original Count. Or if it was something wearing her space in the world, a surplus that had settled so completely it believed itself to be her, carrying her memories, living her life with slight variations, drinking black coffee instead of oat milk because some details don't transfer perfectly across the mechanism of becoming. I don't know. I can't count her to find out. Counting is how you lose things. Or how you become lost. November 2022 through the present. I want to tell you that things stabilized. That I found a livable equilibrium. That not counting became a sustainable lifestyle. But here's what I've learned. The additions accelerate. Or maybe they don't accelerate, Maybe the world has always been accumulating at this rate and I simply became sensitive to it in a way I can't undo. Either way, the surplus is everywhere now. Not in my apartment, not in my office, not in any single location. Everywhere. I notice it the way you notice a word after you've just learned it, suddenly present in every conversation, every sign, every document. Except it's not a word. It's quantity. The sheer amount of things in the world feels wrong to me now. Has felt wrong for years. Too many cars on my street. Too many titles in my streaming queue. Too many items on a restaurant menu. Too many strangers on the bus. I can't tell if any of this is real. I can't tell if the world has more than it should or if I've developed a perceptual disorder, some kind of numerological anxiety, a broken sense of scale. Maybe I need help. Maybe I need medication. Maybe the whole thing, Whitfield, Dara, the burned reports, Aaron, the hallway, the tape, was an elaborate delusion built by a mind that lost its ability to trust its own experience. But then I think about the jacket. The Forest Service jacket with my name on it, embroidered, faded. The second one. I still have it. I can hold it. It has weight and texture and a smell of old waterproofing and wood smoke that matches my other jacket precisely. It didn't come from me. It didn't come from anywhere I can trace. It was added. And if a jacket can be added, if a physical object can appear in a closed apartment and be real and touchable and old and worn and mine in every measurable sense, then so can everything else. So can a door. A room. A person. So can a second version of me. I have been thinking about this for weeks now, and I need to say it plainly because I don't know how much longer I'll be able to trust that the thoughts I'm thinking originate from a single source. I work from home on Fridays. The office is empty on Fridays. Our firm moved to a hybrid schedule. Last Friday, I was on a video call at 10 a.m. A team meeting. 8 people in the gallery view. I watched myself in the small self-view window in the corner. Normal. My face. My apartment behind me. At 10:34, a notification appeared in the meeting chat. It said, Marcus R. has joined the meeting. I looked at the participant list. My name was there twice. I was listed twice. No one commented on it. The meeting continued. I watched the participant count, 9 people, including me twice. No duplicate video feed, just my name, appearing in the list, twice. At 10:41, the duplicate entry disappeared. The participant count dropped back to 8. No one said anything. No one noticed. I didn't mention it. I don't know what joined that meeting using my name. I don't know if it was a glitch, a system error, a digital artifact. Or if something wearing my credentials is testing the spaces I occupy, joining briefly, checking whether anyone counts, whether anyone notices, whether the environment will accept 2 of me without resistance. And here's the part that wakes me up at 3 a.m. The meeting recording. I downloaded it afterward. I watched the participant count on screen. At 10:34, it goes from 8 to 9. At 10:41, it goes back to 8. But when I watch the recording a second time, the count goes from 8 to 9 at 10:34 and stays at 9. It doesn't drop back down. The recording shows 9 participants for the remainder of the meeting. And in the final frame, the last second before the recording ends, there are 2 self-view windows in the corner. Both showing my face. Both in my apartment. The same apartment, from the same angle, with the same bookshelf behind me and the same lamp and the same coffee mug. But in one of them, the second one, the bookshelf has more books. I haven't watched the recording again. I deleted it from my local drive. I don't know if deleting it will matter. I don't know if the second version of me in that recording will settle into reality now that I've stopped observing it. I don't know if not watching is what lets it become real, the way not counting let the trail markers settle, the way burning the reports let the additions complete themselves. I'm telling you this because I've realized something that changes the shape of the whole thing. Something I wish I'd understood back in 2019, when Dara first handed me those brown envelopes. The additions don't need your permission to exist. They only need your permission to be real. And permission is nothing more than the absence of denial. Every report Whitfield filed was a denial. Every count he took was a refusal to let the new things settle. And what happened to him, the multiplication, the landlord's surplus of belongings, the vanishing, was the consequence of sustained denial. If you keep counting, you stay in a world where the additions are visible. Where they can't finish becoming. Where they're stuck, half-real, unable to resolve. And a half-real thing is unstable. And an unstable thing will try to resolve itself through whatever means are available. I think the additions Whitfield documented resolved themselves through him. He became the resolution. One more Whitfield in the world, a surplus made of the person who refused to let surpluses settle. Poetic, in a way that makes me feel sick. Dara understood this. That's why the reports were burned. Not to hide evidence. To complete the process. A report is a count. A count is a denial. A denial keeps the addition visible and unresolved. Destroying the count is an act of permission. It lets the world absorb its own surplus without friction. Dara was a gatekeeper. Not keeping things out. Letting things in. And she was right too. Because the alternative, the world Whitfield lived in, where every addition stayed visible and unresolved, is worse. That's a world where everything is permanently wrong and you can see it and you can't fix it and the wrongness just accumulates around you until there's more surplus than original and you can't tell which is which and neither can anyone else and the whole concept of real collapses under the weight of its own excess. I know this because my world is starting to look like that. I stopped counting. But I can't stop noticing. And noticing might be enough. Noticing might be a softer form of counting, imprecise, deniable, but still a kind of attention that prevents settling. I notice the extra books on my shelf. I notice the hallway taking one more step than it used to. I notice the second jacket. I notice the meeting recording. I notice. And the things I notice are not settling. They're accumulating. My apartment is becoming crowded with objects I don't recognize but which belong to me in every documentary sense. Shirts in my closet I don't remember buying. A second set of keys on the hook by the door that fit my locks. A pair of running shoes by the door, same brand and model as mine but with different wear patterns. Food in my refrigerator that I didn't buy but which matches my taste precisely. Someone with my life is living in my apartment alongside me. Using my space. Eating my food. Wearing my clothes. And because I keep noticing, because I can't make myself stop, they can't fully settle. They're half real. Present but unintegrated. Visible to me and invisible to everyone else. I am Whitfield now. And I know how Whitfield's story ended. So here's what I'm going to do. After I finish telling you this, I'm going to stop. Not stop talking, stop noticing. I'm going to walk through my apartment and look at nothing. Verify nothing. Count nothing. I'm going to let whatever is accumulating around me finish becoming real. I'm going to let it settle. Maybe that means I'll wake up tomorrow with a roommate I've apparently always had. Maybe it means my apartment will have an extra room that was always there. Maybe it means there will be two of me and we'll both believe we're the original and neither of us will count to find out. Maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what the world is doing all the time, adding to itself, accumulating, expanding in ways nobody notices because nobody is foolish enough to keep count. The only horror was ever the counting. I'm going to sleep now. I'm going to leave my bedroom door unlocked. If the hallway has 3 doors tomorrow, I won't check what's behind the third one. If there's someone at my kitchen table in the morning, I'll say good morning and make 2 cups of coffee. I'll let it settle. The last thing I'll tell you is this: when I got home tonight, before I started recording this, I checked my mailbox in the lobby. There were 2 pieces of mail addressed to me. Same name. Same apartment number. Same handwriting on both envelopes, mine. Inside each one, a single sheet of paper with a number written on it. One said 1. The other said 2. I don't know which one I sent. I don't know if I sent either. I threw them both away without thinking about what they meant. And now I'm going to stop thinking about any of it. I'm going to let the world have whatever number of things it wants to have. I just hope, when it's done adding, that the number still includes me.